Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go.
This is Rev-UP by SageFT, creator, founder, trader that you watch on the screen of the live trading desk Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. until we get done. Only thing I'm going to ask you to do for this video is just hit the like button, because I'm going to show you something pretty cool that is hidden beneath the surface on the larger time frames. And I'm going to show you how we played last week, which a lot of people got chopped up. I did very, very well, except for one day when I was red because I decided to go out of process late in the session and be a dum-dum. Still a profitable week. Nonetheless, let's take a look. First thing is we want to take a look at the news. So looking at the news for the week, there was nothing on Monday, major news on Tuesday, nothing on Wednesday, major news on Thursday, and then kind of major news on Friday. But the price action was clearly defined. And so let's take a look. All right. So starting at the daily chart, here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And if we kind of zoom it out, it doesn't look so crowded. But what we're looking for is all of these green lines are, can we make it to it? And if we make it to it, do they go through it? Very, very simple. If we make it to it, do we go through it or not? Right. So just every one of them. And we had major China trade negotiations news Sunday night through Monday. So we have a huge pop. All right. So now when it opens, you're wondering, well, is it going to gap and then crap, or is it going to gap and run? In this case, it was a gap and run. Now, because it was a gap and run, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're understanding, well, where could it go and where would the resistance be? Where would there be supply? Where would there be inventory? Where would there be demand in each direction? All right. So the way that we're going to look at this is right here, we have an all-time high breaker block. Okay. And this all-time high breaker block here, notice that we closed the New York session right above it. All right. But before we get to that, how did we play it throughout the week? Well, we used the moving averages to give us the momentum. All right. And the way that the momentum works is we are fractal up off of the all-time largest move ever, right? In one day, we went 648 points in one day. Now, that marks whatever it's going to be, the top, the bottom, intermediate to longer term top, bottom, very, very short term top, bottom, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is the level that you're watching, right? So now we get, and the way that we have to look at this is, why are we in momentum up? Well, because of what happened back here. They bought it. Okay. They bought it all. Now, when I say they bought it all, here's what I mean. Demand came rushing in and consumed all of the inventory. How would we know that? Because if we look at volume spread analysis, I don't want to go too deep into it, but the effort versus the result. Okay. Notice that the volume was lower on the largest day ever, but over here you have very sizable volume on these 2 days. And what pattern does it give us? Perfect. The perfect 3-bar play. So now right after the 3-bar play, we're going to call this a 4 or 5-bar play, however you want to look at it. But this bar right here sets up what we were looking at last week. And what we had was the China negotiations. They knew the China negotiations were going to come through right here, right? You can see it. So the choreograph was, wait for it. So where was the perfect entry? Well, again, we're setting up last week. Well, it's right here on the sweep the leg. Everything turns up. We test the back test, the momentum bar. Boom, we run it. So now, how did we trade it? Let's go to the smaller time frame. Let's go to the 4-hour, which is what I trade. And let's zoom in so it doesn't look so crowded. Okay, here's the China gap. So what we're looking at is, what do they do from the gap? Well, they turn the jets on, and we go position 1, because here's your 200 simple right here. Here's your 20, here's your 8. So on the 4-hour chart, we are ripping position one, pullbacks only. So we go to the 45-minute and we say, well, how did we trade it? The same way. All right, we're watching this breaker block. And if we get to it, what do we do it? What do we do with it? Do we go through it or reject it? So again, 45-minute goes into position one very, very nicely for a period of time in the beginning. And then we kind of flatten out and then it resumes the trend upwards. All right. So now we trade the 15-minute, we enter on the 2. But we're not going to focus on the 2-minute because it's just going to be another fractal of. And so how did we trade it? Well, what we did is if we had a fractal, if we're in a fractal of the 4-hour, okay, which is in a fractal of the daily, we wait for our fractal on the 15-minute to pop. Remember, fractal, okay, the definition of a fractal is it goes both ways. Okay. Most people think that a fractal of the 4-hour can only be the 2-hour, the 1-hour, the 15-minute. Wrong. Not only does it have to be a fractal of the smaller time frame, the smaller time frame must reflect a fractal of the higher time frame. That's the secret to this whole thing. So how did we do that? Well, we waited for position 1. Here's your 200 simple. Here's your 20. Here's your 8. Here's price. We just waited for it to do its thing when we're ready. And there were some major moves. And then you just had to be very, very selective. You couldn't just think you're just going to short the market and go long. And then as we flattened out, this is Tuesday into Wednesday. This is where people had a lot of trouble because they were trying to be a pullback buyer. And if you look, if you didn't trail your stops tight on longs, they came back and bit you. Okay, and then everybody tried to go short. And then we caught the rest of it throughout the week. This is the 15th. And we were able to capitalize all the way through. Now, we were all done trading right up here. 70, 67 was where I exited. Okay. Now, that's going to bring us into what I think about next week. This is the review and Rev-Up, right? So there was the review. Now, I want to do the Rev-Up. So here's what we're going to look at. Watch this. Don't blink. Watch this bar right here. And I want to remind you, okay, where we're at. Hold on 1 second. Let's set this up. This is very, very, very important, okay? Where we're at is we're inside the break. We just broke outside the breaker block. Or did we? Watch this. That is the close. The settlement is different. Watch this. How did they downgrade the U.S. debt right when we went above the breaker block? Let's look at it on the smaller time frame. All right. Let's look at it on the 1-hour chart. We don't usually look at it on the 1-hour chart. This would be really easy to see, though. This is 4:45 p.m. Friday. May options expiration Friday. Now, where does that bring us, right? Let's go back to the 4-hour chart because with a daily and the 4-hour chart, because that's what we trade. All right. Now, where does it bring us? Here's the deal. Either this was all perfectly orchestrated and it's going to be a push higher into this, the 59.82 over under. Notice we got right to it. Either this fails hard, and where would it fail to? I'm going to show you here in a second, which first thing we have to do is get through the order block. There's the low of the order block, 5858. Okay. And then the next level would be 37, 5837. So then there's one thing that we look at in the trading room is where do these little levels cross, right? Whatever we have drawn, where do they cross? Now look at how perfect this is. 5743. Look at the top right here. Okay, remember context, structure, we look left. If it falls, where does it fall to? Okay, so then that's why we have the green line there. Okay, you could start watching this bar here, which lines up with the what people perceive as the fair value gap right here, right? If we start to fall, this all starts to play. Here's the deal, though. It doesn't have to fall on Moody's downgrade of U.S. debt. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. Okay, so if we go down to the 15-minute chart, look at the low of this thing. So this level right here, this from 17 to 39, all right, If we open below that, you're watching the median threshold of the breaker block. Those are serious numbers right here. I'm going to click on them again. Okay, 58.58 to 59.65. Those are the actual numbers that we're watching early this week. We don't know if they're going to go up, down, right, left. Well, we know they're going to go right. Okay, but do they slide, glide, or what? We're going to find out. What if we break right through all of this and go right down into this cluster down here? Okay, perfect. That's what it's going to do. What if we go all the way up in here? Perfect. This was some sort of accumulation period over the week. Okay, and so now the last thing I'm going to do, and then we'll get out of here. Look at this right here. There's the rest of it. There it is right there. This line right here. Okay, I'm going to put an arrow at it. You're going to see what happens when these lines touch. That's going to do it for me. Smash that like button. If you're a micros trader and you're in the eval days, what I want you to do is take a look at Take Profit Trader. You can use SageFT at checkout, or you can click one of the links that we have provided for you. Take Profit Trader, 50-cent micros during evals, and the pro account. Once you get into the Pro Plus, it might change a little bit, but you'll be into the minis by then. I'm confident of that. That's going to do it for me. I'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. live on all of our socials. Everybody have a great evening. Mark your levels. Trade your plan. Good night.